Round 5 of the GT America powered by AWS season brings the series to the Louisiana Bayou and NOLA Motorsports Park. After starting the season on the tight St. Petersburg streets and then traversing the undulations of Sonoma Raceway, today's challenge is a flat, fast and flowing 2.75-mile ribbon of pavement located some 8 miles from downtown New Orleans. It's a tantalizing mix of high-tech GT3 and GT4 machines that are here on hand for the series debut at this unique venue. Hello everyone, welcome to NOLA Motorsports Park, nearby New Orleans, Louisiana. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside, and Amanda Busick will be down in the pit lane. Quickly, Calvin, it's a unique venue and new to the schedule for GT America.
It is, but it's one that is very raceable, and we've seen a fantastic championship season so far with the two events, both on the streets at St. Pete, very different circuit at Sonoma, but new challenges here today for these drivers on the grid.
A fantastic grid of cars, so many storylines, and let's hear about some of them. Some pre-race thoughts from our Amanda Busick.
We're ready for stop number 3 of the GT America powered by AWS 2023 season right here in New Orleans. And if you look at a summary of the season so far, you had St. Petersburg, Sonoma, but all eyes come in here on Mo Gidley. He is the points leader in GT3, but there's 22 cars on property in this mixed class racing to see what is at hand here in the Bayou. While Mo Gidley has a sizable points lead in GT3, it is Anthony Bartone who's going to be having eyes on him this weekend. He comes off of his first win in Sonoma. He picked up the CrowdStrike fastest lap in St. Petersburg. Only a 9-point difference between him and Jason Daskalos, who finds himself second in points. But being that this is the first stop for GT America in New Orleans, will veteran status such as Jason Daskalos reign supreme here this weekend? 4 races in, and Jason Bell is the leader in the GT4 class, but this points battle is only separated by 5 points in the top 3, so surviving the swamp is key this weekend.
Thanks, Amanda. You know, it's interesting, Calvin, just 4 races into the season, we're already talking points, already talking championship,
yeah.
But this championship, it tends to go down to the wire. Every point valuable.
It does. You have to get off to a strong start this year. I mean, the championship, particularly the GT3 class, is so much more competitive and has a lot more depth than we saw last year. A lot of Mercedes in that field, which has been the dominant car for a while, and it's led by Mo Gidley, who has a couple of wins on the year already, leads the championship, and a very strong qualifying run for him this morning.
We've mentioned it several times already. This was not on the GT America calendar 1 year ago. SRO America came here with several of their championships. So many of the drivers have raced at this track before, but for some, it is brand new. It is flat, it is fast, and it is abrasive. Those are the things you hear the most from the drivers when you survey the paddock.
Yes, certainly. So the track has good grip, but unfortunately, because of the nature, as you see it right there, the aggregate kind of cuts into the tires pretty aggressively there. So marbling, the little piece of rubber that fall off the racing line, is going to be a factor here today. So particularly down through the S's, it could be a one-line racetrack once we get deep into this race.
Cars rolling off for the first of their 2 formation laps, and while they do so, let's hear once more from Amanda.
Well, Ryan, I talked about surviving the swamp, and I hate you missed it with us last night, but it was Calvin Fish and our producer Michael Scott that survived the swamp last night on our swamp tour. Saw some big alligators here in the bayou, but talking about surviving the swamp here today in qualifying. Starting on the pole in GT4 is Elias Sabo, and I talked to him about his experience here last year. Said it was just a disaster of a weekend. You mentioned that GT America was not here, but Elias did race in one of our other categories, but said that he's so excited to be on pole here today, finds that this track has a ton of rhythm that he can get himself into. As he goes from turn 5 through the S's, that's where he looks to pick up speed and that edge of the seat comfort that some of the drivers like to find themselves in.
Appreciate it, Amanda, and you're right, Elias is on the Rover pole for the GT4 class. Mo Gidley, the overall pole sitter. That's a look at the TKO Motorsports Mercedes. Dave Traitel, the team owner, know you had surgery recently. You couldn't be here with us this weekend. We wish you a speedy recovery. Hope to see you at Circuit of the Americas, and I'm sure it puts a smile on Dave's face to see Memo and that Mercedes on pole.
Well, he's such a racing enthusiast, and he's given Memo Gidley this new lease on life to get back behind the wheel with the top-notch organization with the TKM Motorsports, run in association with the Flying Lizard Group, of course, but he's got a battle on his hands. I mean, you've got Adam Adelson, who's just loving life aboard this new Porsche GT3 machine that he's debuting for the first time this season, and he's taken to it like a duck to water because he is bubbly about his chances here today.
Yeah, that's for sure. He absolutely loves his Porsche 911. It's the green one you see right there coming through the center of the shot. Let's look at the starting grid. 10 rows deep in the SRO3, which is basically a catch-all for multiple generations of GT3 machines, and it is Memo Gidley starting on the Roval pole with Adam Adelson alongside. Jason Daskalos and rookie Anthony Bartone will start third and fourth. George Kurtz, and yes, that's Johnny O'Connell aboard a Ferrari, a 458 version of that Ferrari. He starts sixth for the Ski Autosport team. Todd Treffert and Mirko Schultes in the fourth row. Andy Wilczak and Alex Vogel at the back of the SRO3 field. So then we get to row 6. That's where you find the GT4 pole winner Elias Sabo and his Aston Martin. Ross Schwest, a native of these parts, he starts second. Todd Coleman and Jason Bell and a couple more Astons starting third and fourth. Rob Holland and Tony Gaples making his debut at this track starting in row number 8. Row 9 belongs to Jaffe and Shanny, Keebler and Newell, who had to go to the back. An infringement coming in just a little underweight in post-qualifying tech inspection sent that Heart of Racing Aston Martin to the back of the GT4 field. He had a pretty good lap going, though, in qualifying. Unfortunately, does not have the starting position to show for it. First of the two formation laps are now complete, and Memo Gidley and company very busy trying to develop some pressure and temperature in their brakes and tires.
Yeah, really prepping the tires for the launch is really key, and having some grip and the car underneath you when you get into that turn one. It's pretty wide down there, so look for Adelson. Let's see how confident he is with that Porsche here to maybe make a move on Gidley. Timing the jump is obviously critical. And but there's lots of strong cars. Bartone, as Amanda alluded to, off that brilliant victory at Sonoma. I mean, this is a young man that has just burst onto the scene with a real-time racing group in that number 427 Mercedes AMG. You got Kurtz, last year's champion, down there on row 3. He had a good bounce-back weekend at Sonoma. Still hasn't seen victory lane yet, but a disaster at St. Pete. He's gradually turning his season around. And as you said, debut of this man, Johnny O'Connell. That is so cool. 4-time World Challenge SRO champion, and so much experience. Just a monster resume, and a really neat group that he's got together there working on that Ferrari here this weekend.
That's right, won 4 GT championships on the trot back in the Pirelli World Challenge days. That was as a GM factory driver for the Cadillac racing program. Good to see Johnny here. And part of this championship, that team running a selected schedule of events in GT America powered by AWS in 2023.
Yeah, they have a couple of cars in this stable. I think they anticipated campaigning an Audi R8 to start this championship campaign, but they had a fuel cell issue, were unable to get that rectified, so they had the Ferrari as a backup. And there's a pretty good backup. I mean, Andy Pilgrim had a brilliant win at Road America, I believe it was, last year.
So it will be Memo Gidley leading the field to green. 4 podiums in as many starts, including 2 wins to begin this 2023 campaign. And he'll have Adam Adelson, the impressive rookie to GT3 racing, starting next to him. Now, if you were with us for our coverage at Sonoma, it sure looked like he had a win in this category, but after the race, a technical infraction put him to the back of the SRO3 grid. He's credited with a 2nd and a 10th in the 2 races that he's run in GT America this season as a result of that. However, we know he's got the pace. He was on pole for both of the races at Sonoma, and he's going to be bringing the fight to Memo Gidley nice and early.
Yeah, and he didn't compete at St. Petersburg, so he said the championship really wasn't his priority. He's really utilizing this as great experience to get more miles aboard this new Porsche GT3. Basically, you have a starting pressure that you have to have a minimum pressure reading on, and they were just a half a pound or something underneath that. And it's really just a guesstimation of where the car is in the paddock and getting over to the dummy grid, the false grid, and they were just underneath that. So no real performance advantage. He's brushed that to one side, and he's just focused on now on the start of this race.
The lights are off on the top of the Toyota GR Supra safety car. The field starting to come into 2x2 alignment through the 2 final turns. 15 and 16 around this 2.75 mile racetrack just southwest of New Orleans. There's the starter, Tom Hansing. He's got the green flag in hand. The field approaches the VP acceleration zone, and Memo Gidley steps on the loud pedal. He sprints away to take the lead early. Adelson falls in line. The battle is for second, make that third and fourth, just behind the top two.
Yeah, Adelson there. Oh, he gets in a little bit deep there. Little lock up there on that green Porsche. Looks like Daskelos has settled into second, just in front of Bartone.
Make that third, just behind Adelson. Gidley leads the way, Bartone fourth, and the veteran, the reigning champion, Kurtz,
big move,
is fifth. That's Daskelos with a big lunge up the inside of Adelson, shoves him out wide, and he'll grab the second spot.
Argy-bargy early in this one. Elbows are out and flying, and this is where you can make some moves here in this first sector.
Here comes the GT4 field, separate start for GT4, and here comes the hometown hero. Around the outside, Ross West trying to make the move for the lead in class around Elias Sabo.
That's Todd Coleman aboard the green Aston Martin. You see there, the fourth car in line is our championship leader. There's Jason Bell, the number 2 machine, feeling pressure from behind. That's Rob Holland aboard the Porsche.
The first non-Aston in this field that has been dominated by this Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT4 all season long. It's a cluster of them at the very front. Look at this. Memo Gidley has stolen a march on the rest of the SRO3 field. Daskelos did get up to that second spot, but he's fallen over a second adrift.
Yeah, everyone's settling in here.
Oh.
These tires are going to come up to grip pretty quickly. Big moment there for George Kurtz. It's a big bump there as you go through that turn 13. How you attack that, particularly with the tire pressure not fully up yet, and the car a little bit lower to the ground on full fuel.
Yeah, we say it's a flat track, and it is as far as elevation change goes, but there's a lot of undulation when you talk about the bumps around this place.
A lot of bumps indeed. Nico Schultz aboard this Mother's Livery Callaway Corvette, number 70 machine. What a fun competitor he is.
Loves his racing, loves his GM products. Right now he runs in the 8th spot overall and in SRO3, and he's got some pressure coming from behind in Todd Treffert. So Schultz has gotten around Treffert, a veteran of historic racing, still learning the ropes of this wheel-to-wheel competition at the pro racing level in modern equipment, but you look at his pace in historic cars and you expect he's going to be a quick study.
Yeah, he's doing it very, very quickly in terms of adapting to that GT3 machinery. Typically, he'd be competing at the Walter Mitty big historic race that's at Road Atlanta this weekend, but he's here campaigning this championship right now. But this battle is not going anyway. Rob Holland in that blue Porsche really putting the pressure on our championship leaders. He now turns his attention to Todd Coleman right in front of him. Coleman making the move from the Toyota Supra last year. He's really found a nice home. He really feels a lot more comfortable, a lot more confidence in this Aston Martin platform.
And that's the green Aston you look at here. Todd Coleman behind the wheel. The car just behind is Jason Bell, who does come in with the points lead, but it could have been so much more commanding. He was trying to make a move for the lead late in race 2 at Sonoma against a driver who is not in for the full season, effectively was making a one-off start, and unfortunately lost that car, crashed out of a solid podium position, if not a potential win, and nevertheless still leads the points, but what might have been.
Yeah, and I think for Jason, he's still trying to put that one together. After the race, he just felt there was maybe some kind of technical issue that kind of contributed to that moment there, but obviously a devastating blow, but he still holds on to the championship lead. 3 podiums, including a win up until that point in the season, so he's looking to bounce back here.
This is a fascinating duel here between Anthony Bartone, brand new to GT3 racing, and George Kurtz, who has emerged over the last couple of seasons as one of the top bronze-ranked drivers in GT cars. He's right at home in this Mercedes, has tons of laps in it. Bartone does not, certainly not racing laps, and right now Bartone's got his hands full.
He does, and George is running the more theoretical, at least, proper racing line. Anthony's kind of getting a little bit defensive here, but now he's escaped his clutches a little bit. Looked like George had a little bobble there coming through turn 4 and 5. Johnny O'Connell just looking up ahead. He said he'd got to learn this competition. He said the only driver in this field I really know is Memo Gidley.
Wow.
He's way down the road right now, so he's got to get used to these competitors for the first time.
It did cross my mind looking at the entry list who would Johnny have raced against at any point of his career, and it is a short list. These drivers use a lot of curb around this track, and from what I've been told, the curb composition here is somewhat unique, but we do see it's very usable.
Yeah, you need a car that's compliant, that can run over those curves without sort of like bouncing across the road, because that can really straight line, particularly through the S's, and particularly when we start to get those marbles offline through there. If you just run 6 inches wide, you're going to get in there, get that clag on the tires and lose grip, at least for 3 or 4 corners. So I think discipline is really going to be a key factor here today, even though it's only a 40-minute sprint race.
Here is the leader, Memo Gidley, who right now holds a lead of just over 2 seconds ahead of Jason Daskalos, but it was Daskalos who has set the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race here in the early stages. And that's important because the grid for race 2 is set by the fastest lap here in race 1. And based on the tire deck that we're hearing about, that's probably going to happen pretty early on.
Yeah, if you got clean air and you got good grip, go for it, lay one down, and then try and conserve the tires a little bit. Obviously, from Memo's perspective, you don't want to use those tires up in case there should be a safety car out there or a full course yellow, and you're going to lose that gap and then struggle to get to the finish and fight off the competitors behind you. But this is a great job here by Elias Sabo. Continues to lead from Roche West. Roche West family are instrumental in the building of this racetrack, so he knows it like the back of his hand. And he's the championship winner from last year. And he's very much in the mix. Sits in second in points behind Jason Bell, who won the championship a couple of years ago.
And Ross won that title by being so consistent. Didn't win a race until the final 2 races of the season, where he swept at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that was enough for him to claim the title by 6 points over Jason Bell. But you're right. His uncle Laney is the motorsports maverick in the family. Basketball really is the sport of choice in the Schwest household, but Laney kind of led the way and was one of the founding members of this facility. And despite that, Ross told me last year he had very little track time at this track, despite being a New Orleans native and having the family connection.
Well, it was a late call to come here last year, the change in the schedule, so I'm sure it's back on his agenda to maybe get out there and log a few more miles. Maybe he just felt that he wouldn't be competing here, so he didn't really think that the necessary knowledge was going to be an advantage of this circuit, but certainly is now as a regular on our championship calendar. Oh, little bobble there for Coleman. This is going to allow Jason Bell to get on the pad a little bit earlier potentially and make a move into turn 1. Coleman goes on the defensive.
Yeah, he feels that pressure coming out of 16, immediately pulls down to the middle of the racetrack to try and guard the approach to turn 1, which is a fast right-hander. Despite the fact it's nearly 90 degrees, it's still pretty quick through there, and then it leads to a nice flowing section as well. So much flow, in fact, to this racetrack, especially through this part right here, the S's. You hear the drivers talk about it, and they love how precise you have to be to extract lap time through that part of the track.
It's a real challenge. You're really up on the wheel there, kind of almost like a slalom skier trying to hit those apexes. Don't want to miss one, otherwise it's going to cost you in the next corner. But right now, Jason Daskalos hanging on. He's had a solid start to this championship season, had an incident in practice at St. Petersburg, went to the backup chassis and rewarded himself and the crew with a brilliant victory there. And he and the CRP group, with the move to the Mercedes, really feel they've got championship potential. But as we said, so much competition this year.
CRP has some history running the Mercedes-AMG GT3. You might remember it running in the DeVilbiss colors a few years back. Ryan Dial and Daniel Morad, a couple of the drivers. Michael Cooper, I think, did some races for the team. That's led by Nick Short, based for many years in North Carolina, but now in Sarasota, Florida, at the behest of Floridian Jason Daskalos, who has that overall win back at St. Pete Race 1. Here's the move. Bell and Coleman battling it out once again. Coleman has the edge, just enough at least to stay in front for the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the real key. We're seeing that Todd Coleman's got a lot more pace this year. I think right now he's really just got to focus on not making those mental errors and just being super consistent. He's got a great group behind him. Mike Johnson's kind of the strategist, engineer there. And they're giving him all the tools. He's run with Billy Johnson in Pirelli GT4 competition, so a great mentor. I'm sure Billy's on the horn, on the radio, talking him through this event as well. But the key is just really hit your marks right now. Don't be suspect to the pressure from behind from Jason Bell.
Coleman a little stronger out of 16 that time, wasn't under the same kind of pressure. In fact, if anyone, it was Bell in the black and yellow Aston Martin that was feeling some heat from Rob Holland in the Roadtech Porsche just behind.
Here we go. Look at Jason tucking it in there, trying to work the groove there coming through turn 3. This into turn 4. Coleman's still going to have the inside. Watch Rob Pollan. That could open up the door for him here with some opportunity.
Bell continues to hang tough around the outside, fighting for third in the GT4 class. Coleman in the green car. It's Bell in the black and yellow Aston, and here comes Holland, just like you called, Calvin. He's got to run.
Yeah, it's a fascinating little battle. Jason can see the others kind of skipping away, Sabo and Schwest, so he needs to make quick work here of Coleman and try and chase after those leaders.
It's a tough spot to be in if you're Jason Bell. You want to be aggressive, but in doing so, it can leave you vulnerable from attack from Holland.
Well, you got to stay in your rhythm. You got to be mentally, adept here in terms of not forcing it. Wait, bide your time. But however, as we said, it's a short race. We're 25% of the way through this race. Here he goes, another run here. Not typically a good overtaking opportunity down into this brake zone for turn 13, but he was thinking about it.
He made a lunge on the last lap, too. See if he can stay closer this time through 15 and 16. It's basically one extended corner right here. Long duration, puts a lot of load on the left-hand side Pirellis.
Yeah, and you see there, Todd Coleman definitely made a cleaner run through there, and that gives him the normal exit speed, and he should not be under pressure by the time they get to the brake zone for turn 1 this time.
Talk about some of the great coaches in this paddock, and you mentioned Billy Johnson, who Coleman is working with. He's also worked with Aaron Teowitz, and just behind, it's Bell, who's working with Michael Cooper here this year after many years with Andrew Davis.
You could put on a pretty good race if you threw all the coaches in a car.
Yep.
Some top-notch names there.
Back to SRO 3, where Jason Daskalos, the veteran of the series, has his hands full with the newcomer, at least at the GT3 level. Adam Adelson in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, and this is a busy chassis on a given weekend because Adam runs this car, this exact chassis in both GT America as well as Fanatec GT, where he races alongside Elliott Skier.
And that's his main focus for the championship season. You'd have to feel he's going to be somewhat conservative, not really take too much risk here in forcing a move on Daskalos, because this car has to compete here in a couple of hours this afternoon.
On the other hand, this is the primary focus for Jason Daskalos, and he's in the championship hunt by virtue of the 2 podiums he had at St. Pete. Finished just off the podium in both races. 4th place, in fact, at Sonoma, race 1 and race 2. Working his way past Paul Keebler. And a TR3 entered Aston. Oh, this was the leader. This was Sabo, the leader in GT4, and he's had an off-track moment.
This should give the lead to Schwest. Wait and see if we get a replay on that, see how it develops. There's Shanny, who's having a really solid weekend, coming off a brilliant victory with he and Terry Borschella in GT4, winning their AM class, but also winning overall. Just a stunning, shocking result at Sonoma a few weeks ago. But he's up on the wheel here, Shanny is. As you see all the grass now packed into that front grille. That could be an issue here. Not extreme temperatures like we saw here yesterday in the mid-80s, but I'm not sure that Aston's going to survive without getting airflow to the front grille there.
Well, whatever happened to Elias, it has cost him dearly. He has plummeted down to 8th from the lead, and like you said, that has promoted Ross Schwest to the lead. Coleman and Bell now, that battle we've been chronicling, that is suddenly for 2nd and 3rd. Holland not too far behind.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's traffic that's caused this compression, but it looks like Gidley's lead has gone away a little bit here. His last lap was 2 seconds slower than Jason Daskalos, and you can see he's now in the same picture.
These 2 working traffic at St. Pete, you may recall, was something to watch. In fact, that's where Daskalos found his opportunity to take the lead and ultimately the win in the first race of the season. A very daring move in the tight confines of a street course.
Yeah, I think he just wanted it more than anyone else that day, and I think you want to reward the crew with a lot of work when they had to flick to that backup chassis. So just a brilliant victory there. It's a gritty performance, and that's what you expect from Jason.
Already closing in on the halfway mark of this 40-minute sprint. Single driver, no pit stops. Here comes Bell again. This is on Coleman for 2nd place now in GT4. And Rob Holland is going to follow him through. Yeah. Holland, the veteran, able to side to the inside of Coleman. That puts him on the podium.
Yeah, I think Coleman must have had a little twitch there through the middle part of the S's, and Jason was close enough to pounce. So nice move by him, and suddenly he's only got one other car to chase. There you see Coleman there. He's a little bit wide. That's probably the marbles that we're talking about, and he's off-road, so you lose grip immediately. Jason had enough kind of gap there to really just time this run, And good heads-up driving by both of them. Coleman now goes back on the attack, this time on Rob Holland.
Waiting around, that's a bitter pill to swallow if you're Todd Coleman, who was running in podium contention, now has dropped back to 4th. Looks like he might have got away a bit easier than Sabo did relative to the amount of grass on the grill.
I think this is where Todd Coleman just needs to settle back into a rhythm. He's obviously feeling a ton of pressure through the first 15 minutes of this race. Try and settle back in, control your tire management there.
This is all happening some 7 seconds, or just shy of that, behind Ross West, who is running off and hiding. What a fun result that would be if he can hang on for the final 24 minutes of this race to win at his home track. It did look like Todd Coleman had been struggling with the handling of that car more than the cars chasing him, and he had done a nice job handling it until he had that moment.
Gable's having a nice solid run, qualified reasonably well. He's now running in the top 5. First visit for him in terms of racing. I believe they did test here when they were doing a shakedown prior to going to St. Petersburg, but I think they had some technical issues that day, so didn't really gain a lot of track knowledge. But Tony's always a great racer.
Exactly right, and yeah, Ray Sorensen, who runs that Black Dog Speed Shop team, said they've been struggling here this weekend, but threw a couple things at that car, and it has improved. Well, we watched Mamo Gidley continue to lead by 1 second over Jason Daskalos. Let's take this chance to go back down pit side to Amanda.
There's a Flying Lizard team member by the fence here to check out the grill of Elias Sabo's car, just to keep an eye on that. The team did radio over to him to watch his water levels, but Elias, no real confirmation on what happened from his side. He kind of delayed a little bit of communication and came on and talked to the team and said, "It's all right, guys. I'm going to stay out and work on trying to get that pole for tomorrow."
To your point, Calvin, yesterday we saw temperatures up over 90 degrees. It's down about 76 right now, and that might be the saving grace for Elias Sabo, because I think if that had happened to him yesterday, that would have led to some immediate temperature issues.
Jason Bell there making way for our overall leader and GT3 leader, Mamo Gidley, to get through, and that batch of traffic right now has allowed Gidley to skip away a little bit further from both Daskalos and Adelson. Fastest lap in GT4 is held by Rob Holland as I look at it right now, so Sabo's going to have to do some work to dig deep and find speed and pacing those tires deep into this race.
Tough to do. We were watching a lot of the qualifying sessions earlier today, and after about 3 or 4 laps, you stopped seeing any personal best sectors. There is just not much grip to be found the deeper you go on the tire stint, with as abrasive a surface as they have here at NOLA Motorsports Park.
Yeah, it's a different form of tire degradation at Sonoma. Oh, it's a late move there by Adelson. Clears him nicely. Not a battle for position, of course, as GT3 versus GT4, but at Sonoma it's all about sliding the tire, overheating the tire and losing grip that way. Here it's almost like a cheese grater. It's like imagine a piece of cheese and you're just grinding over over the grater. That's what the tires will do here with the abrasive nature and the makeup of this asphalt.
Amanda telling us that the team sees what we're seeing. There is a lot of grass on the front of that car for Elias Sabo. And he came back, he rejoined in P8. That is where he still runs, some 3.5 seconds behind Ray Newell, who is the next car in pole position, 7th on the racetrack.
He's running pretty quick lap times, about a second off his best, but he certainly took about 3 seconds out of Gray Newell on that lap. I'm sure that was traffic induced on Gray's perspective as well.
This is a look at Ski Autosports, the team, which stands for Spending Our Kids' Inheritance. Johnny O'Connell behind the wheel, Ferrari 458. And let's hear more about Johnny O with Amanda.
You guys were talking about earlier how, well, for Johnny O'Connell, the only person that he is familiar with on this track is Mamo Gidley. He was also telling me that that is also advantage for him because they don't know him either. So an interesting way to come into the series in that mindset. But as you said, with his experience, you can only imagine that that would be right for Johnny O'Connell. But said there was 3 focuses that he had on the weekend at hand, and that was don't hit anything, don't break anything, and stay on the racetrack. So welcome back into the series, Johnny O'Connell. But I would say the best nugget that I got from Johnny and talking to him in the pits prior was that he's known Calvin Fish since my birth year. And Calvin, for both of us, I will restrict that information.
I will too, Amanda. But yeah, Johnny and I were fierce competitors. We both won an Atlantic Championship. He won the West Coast, I won the East Coast in 1987. I'm not sure if that's near Amanda's birthday or not. But anyway, he did come over the East Coast and kick my butt on the streets of St. Petersburg, so I've never forgiven him for that.
And, you know, he said that maybe the rest of the field doesn't know him, but they paid any attention to motorsports in North America over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I think they might be familiar with what Johnny is capable of. Admittedly, this is going to be a challenge. This is an older generation car, SRO 3 as a category. It's built to welcome cars like this or the Callaway Corvette that isn't necessarily the most recent specification of GT3 machine. But the big difference, while there is BOP to try and bring things close, the technology in things like ABS and traction control, it's come a long way in the 10 or so years since this car made its debut.
It really has. He even said compared to the last GT3 machinery, this is somewhat antiquated design. But he said, I'm living with it. And he said their engineering squad there is just unbelievable. They really can turn the knobs on that car and find the speed in this Ferrari. Phil Creighton's the team manager there, who I first drove for when I made my introduction to racing here in the States back in the mid-'80s. So a lot of experience there, and they're having fun with it. They expect solid results. I think podiums are still, even with the strength of competition this year, I still feel they can get some podiums this year with that Ferrari.
Well, the neat thing about this championship, which is geared towards bronze-rated drivers, many of whom fall into the gentleman driver category where racing is not their primary business. Well, for Gidley and O'Connell, that's not the case. They've made their career in motorsports, but due to age, effectively, based on the regulations, they find themselves eligible to race here. And it was actually Phil Creighton who brought up the point that this gives a benchmark for all these bronze drivers who want to be around this sport for a while, something to shoot for, something to measure themselves by. And there's some value in the fact that they have two veterans like Memo Gidley and Johnny O'Connell, Andy Pilgrim, who raced earlier this season in this championship at St. Pete. And also, you know, if you say, hey, I ran second to Johnny O'Connell or to Memo Gidley, your buddy at home is going to be pretty impressed.
Yeah, and if you can beat him,
even more so.
Even don't get into what year it was when you're telling tales later in life.
That's it. Checking in on the battle for second and third overall with Daskalos, who's now 5 seconds adrift from Gidley, so that traffic has cleared and Memo has been able to pull out the advantage once again. But this fight between Daskalos and Adelson, it's been fierce throughout the race. Right now, about 1.2 seconds between them. Then we drop back and find Anthony Bartone, young man from a famous drag racing family, but going road racing. He's been so impressive at how quickly he's picked up this GT3 car.
Yeah, really nice young man. Really like what he's doing on the racetrack, his attitude. He's using Andy Pilgrim's mentorship and experience, soaking all of that up, and with a great team led by Nathan Bonneau, the real-time racing group, are an excellent squad. So great to see them back here full-time as well.
This is the dominant champion in SRO 3 1 year ago. Won the championship by 151 points. Woo. Did George Kurtz, and he's got Johnny O chasing him down with 17 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, car's a little bit sideways there, so struggling for traction there coming through turn 14, and that just makes it physically a little bit hard. I saw Johnny literally as he's climbing out of the car after a long practice session yesterday. He said, this is hard work. He said, I haven't raced a lot in recent years, and he said it's tough to get back in there and really because you're using, you know, more mental energy as well as physical, getting back on board. It doesn't come as naturally, and I think as he gets more races under his belt again, I think that physical exertion and mental exertion will calm down a little bit for him. But he said this is a tough task here, particularly yesterday. It was our first real summer day, I think, of the year.
7th place running Todd Treffert for CRP Racing, and this team got a nice boost earlier in the weekend when they brought in Kenton Cook, who we'll see in probably GT4 America later on this year. He shook down both of their cars and kind of gave them some direction on where to go setup-wise. That was on Thursday. Now we drop to the GT4 leader, Raj Schwest. 2.3 seconds is the lead over Bell. That has come down.
Big time. Lost a second there on one lap, so let's see if Jason Bell now has enough pace to catch this leader with solid 15 minutes to go. So there's time on the board. He's got to just keep chipping away at it. Don't look for the big 1 second advantage, but just look for those little tenths of a second and try and get on his tail with maybe 5-10 minutes to go and put the pressure on for the win.
Well, this is a reprise of the championship battle from 1 year ago. Ross Schwest ultimately came out on top over Jason Bell, who himself won the championship back in 2021 in the GT4 class. And Rob Holland was in the mix both years, ultimately came up a little bit short, but he and that Rotec team, they've been pretty consistent challengers over the last few years.
Yeah, they're a good group. Got an excellent engineer there. Brian Maher is on their pit box, and he's got a ton of experience. So it's a good group they put together. But their class is kind of dominated by these Aston Martins in terms of numbers, and performance is strong, it seems. One of those cars that just seems to tick all of the boxes every single week. There don't seem to be any weak links with that car, and it seems to be very compliant, riding the curves around this circuit, which is so essential to getting lap time out.
A moment ago, we were looking at Todd Coleman, who runs 4th in GT4. Back to the SRO 3 battle. Daskalos and Adelson has closed the gap down. Once again, they remain in the same camera shot.
Gidley's just stretched that lead big time. I looked at one point like Gidley was sliding the car a little bit, so maybe he was just forcing it. He saw that lead go away through traffic and maybe just asking too much from that Mercedes, but he settled back in again and really running some competitive lap times up front. But Adelson still has his sights here on Daskalos for that P2 position.
Adam has very limited GT3 experience. Ran the 24 Hours of Dubai back over the winter, but shocked all of us with his immediate pace at Sonoma. He did not run the season opener for GT America at St. Petersburg, so the first time we really got a chance to see what he was capable of was at Sonoma, and he very nearly came away with a trophy in all 4 races he ran. It was just that one technical infraction that cost him a chance to bring home not just any trophy, but the P1 trophy in race 2 of GT America.
Yeah, now he returns to a track that he really opened the door for success last year. He and Elliott Skier swept Pirelli GT4 races here last year. He had a neat story. There was a red flag with the rain and a 2-hour delay in things, and he just sat back and watched the movie, Ryan.
Yeah, they said they had enough time to watch this entire film about Operation Mincemeat, which is an interesting World War II special ops operation. If you don't know about it, check it out. I won't bore you with the details, but Calvin knows I could.
You are amazing, let me tell you. When I stood and heard you regale that story, knowing all about it without even watching the movie, just fantastic. And Treffer is really putting the pressure on for position 6 with Johnny O'Connell.
This is fantastic from Todd, who is just gaining confidence in this type of car, coming again out of the historic ranks, where he is very, very fast, has won just about everything there is to win in historic racing in North America. It's a different mentality, though, when you go racing at this level. And Nick Short, the team boss, has said several times, look, he'll figure it out. We know he's quick. Just needs a little bit more seat time, and now a chance to study at the feet of a master.
Yeah, well, the rules of combat are a little bit different here. I think with HSR type racing, you're kind of give each other a little bit of racing room. Johnny O'Connell's not going to give him any, but he's really struggling with that Ferrari for grip there. Treffer to the inside. Johnny sees him, doesn't want to have contact. As you said, one of his ideas was to finish this race, but he's feeling the heat right now.
That was pretty sweet, though, from Todd Treffer, that crossover that he attempted to use in 15-16. Johnny just able to get the power down better. And looks like that Ferrari's pretty stout in a straight line coming down the front stretch.
Yeah, I think it does have that. It doesn't have the downforce of some of the newer generation cars, but it certainly has straight line speed. But even so, you can see Johnny's kind of stalling out in some of these corners. He just can't roll the speed at this stage of the tire life.
Maybe that's not the strength of the Mercedes. We see it carve through the corners so well. It's a really balanced platform in so many ways, but not necessarily a straight line rocket ship.
See what Johnny can do here in placement of that car. It's going to be a long 11 minutes here to resist this challenge from behind.
The O'Connell name has been active in racing this year, in addition to what we're seeing here from Johnny. His son Kanan was racing in the Toyota GR Cup, which was with us under SRO sanctioning at Sonoma. We'll see them back in action at COTA, but really cool to see Kanan getting a chance to jump back in the race car. He's done a few little starts here and there, was running in the TCB championship, in the TC America championship a few years back. But since that class went away, haven't seen a whole lot of him, but takes after the old man in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he does. Really nice young man. very talented. This is where Johnny's really struggling through that corner right there. There's just no grip. Trevor just swings around the outside. It was no contest, really.
So Todd Trefford around Johnny O'Connell for P6 with just 10 minutes to go at NOLA Motorsports Park. Fantastic job by Todd Trefford, who now needs to overcome a 10-second deficit to George Kurtz. He wants to crack the top 5, probably a tall task with just 10 minutes to go.
I think the fact that George is running in P5 really showcases how competitive this championship is this year. It's really gone up to another level. A lot more Mercedes, which has been the dominant car, competing, and you got guys like Gidley here full-time as well, as Dascalo's making the switch to Mercedes. Adelson, as we've talked about, so comfortable aboard one of these GT3 machines, and then sensational newcomers like Bartone. So tough field this year.
It is. And talking to George Kurtz at St. Petersburg, who was the reigning champion, as I said, dominated this SRO3 category 1 year ago, and he's looking around, and Andy Pilgrim was racing there that weekend, Mamo Gidley, plus Jason Dascalos, who's been in this game for a while. There is George right here, stuck behind some GT4 traffic through a place that's pretty tough to get alongside. He's able to clear Nick Shanny there, but George was very up front. This got a whole lot harder 1 year to the next.
Yeah, it really has, and he'll keep digging. I mean, he's got a great group behind him. He and Colin Brown run so competitively in the Fanatec Championship as well, so he's getting a lot of seat time. Very busy racing campaign as well as his business world.
Definitely so.
Adelson flashing the lights here, trying to distract Jason Dascalos, but he's a little tough for him. It's going to take more than a quick flick of the headlights to put him off his game.
For sure. Dascalos hasn't run many full-time series, but if you go back in the history books into the Pirelli World Challenge days in the aughts and into the teens here this century, he's done a lot of races over the years, a lot of Vipers in his background. So similar front-engined platform here, but he's got some heat in the form of Adam Adelson, who has closed in and looks poised to go on the attack.
Yeah, I think tire degradation is starting to kick in. We first saw it on Johnny O'Connell's Ferrari. I think we're seeing a little bit with Dascalos right now. The key for Adelson is timing his run. I think his car's performing a little bit better at this stage of the race. It's just timing this. Bartone is not that far away, so don't discount him for a podium run still.
Yeah, there he is in the shot, the third car through. This Mercedes right here, run by Real Time Racing, the Bartone Brothers Racing Squad. And let's hear more about his story with Amanda.
Well, I think I giggle every time I see the 427 on the side of that Mercedes. You were talking about the homage to drag racing, obviously the 427 being that very successful Chevy big block, but that starts from the drag racing heritage of his father, Tony Bartone. He is a legend over in that world. Their top alcohol funny car is racing in Charlotte this weekend at the Four Wides, being piloted by series champion Sean Bellemere. But I want to go back to Anthony Cowell. We mentioned at the top of the show that he comes off of that win in Sonoma. It was actually because of a tech infraction from the winner of the race. So Anthony was pushed up to that win, and he told me after the race, while it's good to see this in the history books, I want a real one.
Yes, nothing like seeing that checkered flag first, but he deserved it. I mean, obviously the Wright Motorsport team, and John Wright put his hand in the air. He said it was our fault. We were just half a pound off there, but this is really compressing nicely here. I think Dascalos is kind of backing Adelson up a little bit towards Bartone.
This battle just went through a pretty interesting scrap in GT4 as well. Elias Sabo has made his way up to 7th and was starting to pressure Tony Gables for 6th in the GT4 class, but that was broken up a little bit by these leaders in SRO3 coming through. Dascalos, Adelson, Bartone, that's how they run. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th overall.
This is where you're really up on the wheel, just eating those curbs up, making sure you stay on line, don't run wide. Even 6 inches will grab those marbles and mean that you're into the next corner with not as much grip. Bartone, big run here. He is feeling it, he's getting hungry. And this is what's so much fun at this stage of his career, to suddenly be in the heat of these battles and just enjoy it and embrace it. and try and figure out. He's got pretty good racecraft. I love where he positions his race car when he's in a battle like this. We saw that at Sonoma, where he just works his lines to try and get the exit speed off some of these corners.
Looks like it was Adelson who had the edge out of 15 and 16. And from being on the defensive now, he appears to be the hunter. Right there, Phil, in the rear view of Jason Daskalos, but not close enough to make a lunge into turn 1.
Boy, that Porsche rear wing really moves around there towards the end of that front straightaway as he gets towards the brake zone, doesn't it?
Sure does. Heavy air here in the deep south. Very humid, making a lot of downforce.
Right there is where Daskalos, I feel, is vulnerable. As you come through turn 3, he's really struggling to get the car turned and get back to power. So he's really feeling the pressure right in that particular corner. Nowhere for Adelson to go is tricky. You know, I think he's got him covered right now into the brake zones for 1, 3 and turn 4, but just coming off of turn 3, he's struggling to get the power down, it looks like.
It's an interesting dynamic. Adelson not in it for the championship, in part because of that penalty, but also because he didn't run the first 2 races of the season. Daskalos and Bartone very much thinking about championship points.
Well, here we go.
Today.
There's an opportunity. Potentially, I think Daskalos is backing this group up a little bit so he can get a clean run through this traffic right here. Gray NOLA in front. That was nicely done by Jason Daskalos. I think Adelson will go with him. Bartone, is he going to have enough? Yes, he does. Sweeps around the outside. Tough move. Now he's in the marbles. Got to be careful.
Savvy, though, to use the traffic the way that he did. Daskalos using all of his experience to his advantage as he fights and scraps to hold on to the second step of the podium.
Yeah, the chess match in traffic has an added element with that fact if you do go offline, so it's well controlled there by Jason Daskalos.
The car they went by, the GT4 car, Gray Newell, from the back of the pack, now runs 4th in class. Sabo did get by Gaples. He's now 5th. Gaples 6th. That's in GT4. This, though, SRO 3, just 3.5 minutes to go. Gidley has scampered away. 11.5 seconds the difference between 1st and 2nd, but 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, hey, it's anybody's race at this point.
It's that corner again where Daskalos is vulnerable. He ran a slightly wider line there, opened up his hands a little bit, just made it flow a little bit more, which makes it even more difficult for Adelson to do anything with the advantage he has in that particular corner. See how rough this track is at certain areas when you're really using all of the track limits there coming through turn 5. Really bounces the back end of these cars around. Traffic up ahead. Maybe Tony Gaples.
Got an update that Todd Coleman had it off and had to come down the pit lane, so that has dropped him outside of the top 5, down to 9th in GT4.
Oh, that was tight. That's Joffe. I think it was a similar scenario. Daskalos is trying to control this situation. He almost backs himself. Oh, and there goes Bartone down to the inside.
And here comes George Kurtz. He sneaks into the mix as well, and the door might be open. Bartone barged his way through. He's able to grab 3rd spot from Adelson, and Kurtz is very much in the mix now. 2 minutes, 14 seconds to go. We're doing 90-some second laps, so should be 2 more laps to go.
Positions are reversed here. Here comes Adelson with that Porsche. Looks like got a little bit more straightaway speed. He's got the inside lane. Tough for Bartone to move across here. And here comes George Kurtz as he try and go all the way down to the inside.
3 into 1 into turn 1. A hip check as Adelson sends Bartone wide, and the sea parted for George Kurtz, who just raced his way up 2 spots in 1 corner.
Really nice job there by George Kurtz. Handled that perfectly. Dirty part of the racetrack. Didn't get any lockup. Didn't get into the ABS. Nicely done. Now he's got Daskalos right in front of him. So from P5, suddenly Kurtz is thinking about P2 in this race.
Not sure we would have seen George make this move a couple of years ago, but he is racing with a great deal of confidence to the inside. Little contact between the Porsche and the other Mercedes. That's about as easy as they come.
Yeah, I think for Adelson, I don't think he drove Bartone off the racetrack. I'd imagine that he just got into the ABS there, and you lose a bit of the braking pressure. The car goes straight, essentially. Can't turn it with that sort of speed on board, and a little bit of a nudge there at track out.
The 2 drivers still very new to GT3 racing, and Adelson and Bartone. The savvy veteran George Kurtz is there to take advantage. We're getting reports that there could be some rain around the circuit as we come approaching now the white flag lap, I think.
Bartone!
Oh, big contact.
Yeah. That was pretty lively move there by Anthony. Just too late, too deep, too many cars in the same picture.
Oh, that knocks Kurtz out of a potential podium. Not sure if that car is wounded or not. Bartone as well. Let's look at it again, Calvin. You saw this setting up.
Yeah, he looks to the inside, but you just got to think a little bit further ahead, and then he's got two wheels in the grass. No way to get that wheel down, and gets right into the side of George Kurtz. So I think the stewards will take a look at that one, and probably not good news for Anthony.
Looks like both cars are able to continue on. That's a dodged bullet there for Adelson. Not only did he avoid any impact on his race here, but that's the same chassis he wants to race later on today in Fanatec GT. So that could have been really disastrous there. You see it, windshield wipers engaged.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe the racetrack was a little bit damp, but even so, that was not an ideal decision to make there, to try and stick it down at the inside. And that particular corner, I mean, it was always going to get ugly.
The move was there to get by Adelson, and maybe that would have worked, but you have to factor in the fact that Kurtz is there too.
Yeah, he's not going to disappear, right?
Final lap, Gidley now with a 15-second advantage. This continues to be a race for position. Daskalos might have thought he had a reprieve, but not so much. Adelson has been freed of any pressure, and now he can just put his head down and try and take second away.
Yeah, but look at Adelson. He's up on the wheel. He's feeling it. He's keeping the energy in those tires. And the real key is when you're in these sort of conditions, if you keep the car's pace up, that keeps the temperature up and gives you the grip, versus someone who's being a bit more tentative.
Gidley around the final corner for the final time, and for the third time this year, he picks up a win overall and in SRO 3. Memo Gidley, TKO Motorsports win at NOLA Motorsports Park. And that'll make Dave Traitel feel great as he recovers from surgery. The team owner, checkered flag waves over Daskalos and Adelson. So that's how the podium will complete in SRO 3. Kurtz, then Bartone, although that could see an adjustment based on that penalty. And across the line, Roche West did hold on to get the win in GT4. Gray Newell looking to get one more spot here at the stripe. It's a drag race to the line with Rob Holland. And at the line, it looks like it's Holland.
No, it changed.
It's Gray Newell.
Yep.
Wow, photo finish.
That was an incredible finish. What a performance by Gray Newell. Great job.
From the back of the pack to third. Newell on the podium, and it was this close.
Yeah, they're rubbing elbows here, but everyone's going up for it, trying to eke. You're almost jumping out of the seat like you're in a go-kart, trying to get that thing to the finish line.
I've got one screen that says Newell is third. I've got another that says Holland was third, and the margin was 2/1000ths of a second. They might have to take a look at some camera footage to settle that one. In the meantime, Todd Coleman trying to recover from a difficult race weekend. He's working on Jaffe, a debutant in the series, who we'll see in Pirelli GT4 America a little bit later. This is for 8th and for 9th, and I think Jaffe has just enough to come across the line and clinch that position.
Yeah, Coleman's been off the road again. I don't think his split is still on the front end of that car.
Yeah, Amanda did say he had a second off and he had to pit for that. So I suspect that's what put him so far back. And there's Memo Gidley waving to the fans, celebrating another win. A great start to the season it has been. This time he does it from pole. His third win in the first 5 races, and he's yet to finish off a podium in 2023.
Yeah, they're starting to feel their feet a little bit with that Mercedes. I think early on they still try to figure out what made it tick, but they certainly showcased a great performance with that car here today. Looked like he's under pressure a little bit when they encountered GT4 traffic for the first time mid-race, but once he got clear of that traffic, just got the hammer down in some really, really strong laps.
As you'd expect from a driver of his caliber and of his level of experience. These are the results that we have, and we will have to double check, I think, especially in GT4. No question about this. Gidley from Daskalos from Adelson, 1, 2, and 3. Kurtz finishes 4th on the road, Bartone 5th, although with that contact there could be an adjustment coming. We'll leave that up to the stewards. Treffert with a nice day to get to 6th, O'Connell 7th, Schultes, Wilczak, Vogel, the rest of SRO 3. Then in GT4, a hometown win for Roche West. That will be a happy bunch. Jason Bell is 2nd, And the report we're getting is Rob Holland by 2/1000ths of a second finishes in third, just
Usually
ahead
I'd
of
have
Gray
called it the
Newell.
other way. I thought Gray just had us, so we'll have to. Some of it is where the transponder is in the car as well
Sure.
versus the front splitter.
Now they'll have photo evidence to take a look at, and that's why they call them photo finishes. Sometimes it needs to be verified that way. Rest of the top 5 goes to Holland and Sabo, with Gaples fighting 6th here today. These are the GT4 results, split away from SRO3. Shanny has had a nice weekend. Joffe debuting this weekend. Coleman had a fast car, doesn't get the result to show for it. And then Keebler, good to have Paul back after missing race 2 at Sonoma due to a family emergency. Happy to have you back in the fold, Paul.
Yeah, and I think with that win for Ross West, that should give him the championship lead at the end of today, at least.
Schwest and Bell. Boy, where have I heard that before?
It's going to be a fun one.
For sure, as it was 1 year ago. Let's take a look at highlights from race 1 as the clouds start to roll in. There's the initial green flag. First pole of his GT America career for Memo Gidley, and he leads the field into turn 1 for the first time.
See a little lock up there initially from Adelson when he went to the brake pedal, got it back under control. You see Johnny O with the number 56 Ski Autosport Ferrari in the mix, and the GT4 battle continues.
Jason Bell was on a charge early, didn't have the qualifying result he was looking for, but they are working with Rob Holland. Here's the battle between Todd Trefford and Johnny O'Connell. This raged for a couple of laps, and ultimately it was Trefford who prevailed.
Yeah, Johnny just had some tire deck, it looked like mid part of the race. Big move here. That was a nice one that Bartone put on Adelson there for position, and got a little bit uglier later in the race.
Yeah, he made it work once. The second time, not so much. Tags George Kurtz. Both cars were able to continue at the stripe. Memo Gidley picked up the win by 13.3 seconds. And then the checkered flag waved for Ross Schwest, who got a coveted win in the GT4 ranks. This was for the final step of the podium in GT4. Timing and scoring calls it for Holland in the Porsche by just 0.02 of a second. Let's hear from Amanda with Memo Gidley.
Well, he just said he was like starting to sprinkle there on the end. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And Memo, I know you don't take these moments for granted, but I loved how at the very end before you came to us, you slowed down, you waved to the fans, just taking in this moment for yourself. Just being on track, you kind of had from green flag to checkered, but what's the momentum you can use to tomorrow for this win?
Well, it's a surprise. I mean, we worked really hard on the TKO Mercedes, the number 101 car. We did a couple days testing here, and I never really felt like we were quite right. And it wasn't until qualifying this morning that I was like, okay, we nailed it. And then it was just like going out there trying to do consistent laps. Car behind me was closing up on lap traffic. I got held up a few times, so I had to, try and get through them as quick as possible. And it's just awesome for TKO Motorsports, and just, I'm living the dream, and hope everybody else who's not out here is doing the same, because it feels great.
We're going to get ready for podiums here. I am going to go to the hometown winner who came out of his car absolutely celebrating to a crowd that was nearby. And Ross, to get this in front of your family, your home crowd right here in New Orleans, how sweet are these wins?
It was really amazing. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing team. The guys did a great job as always. I'm very fortunate to have my parents here and my family, and my wife Bailey and little baby Vivian in her first race ever. So apparently she's a good luck charm, so I'll have to bring her to the rest of the races.
Congratulations, Ross.
Thank you very much.
I think Vivian's going to grow up at the racetrack whether she likes it or not. If she is the good luck charm, fantastic. So for Ross Schwest, who won at St. Petersburg in race 1 of the season, adds another win here. He's now had 4 podiums in 5 races to start 2023. That's it for race 1 of the weekend for GT America, powered by AWS. Back for another round. Looking ahead to tomorrow from NOLA Motorsports Park. So long for now.